The crystalline walls of the Zephyrian palace trembled as another energy blast struck the outer shields. Jake Murphy pressed himself closer to the corner where Princess Lyra lay unconscious, her silver skin pale from the poison coursing through her veins. The royal guards had been clear in their warning before they fled to defend the palace gates. No human was to speak in the presence of the dying princess, for human vocal frequencies could accelerate the toxin and kill her within minutes. Yet Jake remained motionless beside her ornate bed. 3 days earlier, Jake had been nothing more than a mechanic aboard the trading vessel that crash-landed on Zephyria. Now he was the only thing standing between the most beautiful being he had ever seen and certain death. Princess Lyra stirred slightly, her long silver hair cascading over the silk pillows like liquid starlight. Her breathing was shallow, and each exhale seemed weaker than the last. Jake wanted desperately to comfort her, to tell her everything would be fine, but he bit his tongue until it nearly bled. The palace shook again and dust fell from the ceiling. The rebel forces were getting closer, and soon they would breach the inner chambers Jake knew they would show. No mercy to the princess who had tried to make peace with the human colonies. Lyra's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that shifted from deep purple to brilliant gold. She looked at Jake with confusion, then recognition. Her lips parted, as if to speak, but only a weak whisper emerged. Jake leaned closer, careful not to make a sound. He could see the pain in her alien features, the way her delicate fingers trembled against the bedsheets. She was trying to say something important, but the poison made speech nearly impossible. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridors. Jake knew he should run, should save himself like everyone else had done, but something kept him rooted to the spot. Perhaps it was the way she had looked at him during the peace negotiations with such hope and curiosity. Or maybe it was simply that no living being should die alone. Princess Lyra reached out with one shaking hand, and Jake gently took it in his own. Her skin felt like cool silk, and he could feel her pulse growing weaker by the minute she squeezed his hand with what little strength she had left, and Jake squeezed back. The rebels burst through the chamber doors, their weapons raised, and ready to fire. Their leader, a scarred Zephyrian, with burning red eyes, smiled cruelly when he saw the dying princess. The human stays to watch her die, how touching. The rebel sneered. Perhaps we should make this more interesting. Jake stood slowly, positioning himself between the rebels and Lyra's. Betty had no weapons, no way to fight back, but he would not let them harm her further. The rebel leader laughed at this display of human stubbornness. You cannot even speak to defend her, human. Your voice would finish what our poison started. The rebel raised his energy weapon. Step aside and we might let you live. Jake remained motionless, his jaw clenched tight. He thought about his sister back on Earth, about the life he would never see again. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was the fragile being behind him, who had shown his species kindness when others called for war. Princess Lyra tried to sit up, her hand still clasped in Jake's. She looked at the rebels with defiance despite her weakened state, and spoke in a voice, barely above a whisper. Leave him alone, he has done nothing wrong. The rebel leader's eyes widened in surprise. The princess speaks for a human, how the mighty have fallen. He aimed his weapon directly at Jake. Your pet human dies first, then you will follow. But before he could fire, a new sound filled the chamber, the deep rumble of human ship engines. Jake felt his heart leap as he recognized the distinctive signature of Earth Defense Force vessels. The rebels looked around in panic as the sounds grew closer. Explosions echoed from the palace entrance, and the steady march of combat boots announced the arrival of human marines. Impossible. The rebel leader snarled. No human ships were in this system. Through the chaos, Jake heard a familiar voice calling his name. It was Captain Lisa Brown, his former commanding officer, leading a rescue team through the palace. Jake wanted to shout back to guide them to the right chamber, but he remained silent. The rebels were retreating now, their confidence shattered by the unexpected arrival of human forces. Princess Lyra squeezed Jake's hand again, and when he looked down, he saw she was smiling, despite her pain. The chamber doors burst open again, but this time, it was Captain Brown and her Marines, their weapons trained on the fleeing rebels. Jake had never been so happy to see another human face. Jake, what the hell are you doing here? Captain Brown demanded. Then she saw Princess Lyra and her expression softened. Is she, Jake, nodded toward the princess, then made a cutting motion across his throat. Captain Brown understood immediately human speech would be fatal to the alien royal. The captain knelt beside the bed and examined Princess Lyra with practiced efficiency. I had medical training and quickly assessed the situation. Zephyrian neural toxin, she whispered. We need to get her to our medical bay immediately. Princess Lyra looked between Jake and Captain Brown. Her golden eyes filled with gratitude. She tried to speak again, but Jake gently placed a finger to his lips, reminding her to conserve her strength. As the Marines carefully lifted Princess Lyra onto a medical stretcher, Jake finally allowed himself to hope. Perhaps there was a chance, perhaps the human doctors could find a cure that Zephyrian medicine could not. Captain Brown placed a hand on Jake's shoulder. You did good staying with her, Jake. Your silence might have saved her life. The journey back to the human medical ship felt endless. Jake stayed close to the stretcher. Never letting go of Princess Lyra's hand, the ship's doctor immediately began working with antidotes and treatments that might counteract the poison. Hours passed in tense silence. Jake sat vigil beside the medical bed, watching as color slowly returned to Princess Lyra's silver skin. Her breathing became stronger and more steady. When she finally opened her eyes again, they were clear and bright. She looked at Jake with an expression he had never seen before, something deeper than gratitude. You stayed? She whispered, her voice stronger now. Even when they told you not to speak, you stayed beside me. Jake smiled and squeezed her hand gently. I could not leave you alone. Princess Lyra sat up slowly, her recovery remarkable thanks to human medical technology. My people will remember this. Jake Murphy, they will remember that when death came, calling a human chose silence and compassion over his own safety. The peace negotiations resumed a week later, but this time they were different. Princess Lyra spoke of Jake's actions to her people, and gradually attitudes began to change. Jake never spoke about what happened in that palace chamber, but he did not need to. His actions had spoken louder than any words ever could, and in the years that followed, as humans and Zephyrians built a lasting alliance, people would remember the human who chose silence to save an alien princess.